You're listening to the Mission Makers Show, a podcast that inspires humans to get into the mindset of success. My name's Farah Nanji, and I'm the founder of a business in the motorsports industry that explores leadership lessons from things like Formula One. I'm also a DJ and music producer in the underground electronic scene, and a public speaker on key topics like resilience, building high-performance teams, overcoming learning difficulties, and stimulating creativity. And to tie it all together, I love writing thought-provoking content as a journalist for these industries which are so unique in themselves. On this show, I'm sitting down with some of the most inspiring and driven people I've met around the world to talk about their processes, their failures, the lessons they've learned, and how they are truly making an impact for this world. My guest today joins us from a beautiful island in the Indian Ocean, just off the southeast coast of Africa. He's located in Mauritius, and I had the pleasure of meeting him a few years ago when I was invited to DJ for one of his venues on the island. His name is Javed Vayid, and to many in Mauritius, he's known as one of the first pioneers that brought electronic music to this remote island, running beach clubs, restaurants, nightclubs, and festivals. As an entrepreneur, his story is one of ambition and rebellion, and in this episode, he shares with us why Mauritius is so much more than just a beach resort, his views on preserving his country both in the political and natural spheres of life, and his journey towards entrepreneurship. Javed, thanks so much for coming on the show today. I think our guests will have so much interesting things to learn from you. You've definitely been a very innovative entrepreneur, and so I'd love to start from the beginning and hear from you and tell us who is Javed and how did you get into the path that you're on today?
Okay, thanks for inviting me, Farah. I'm 36 years old from Mauritius Island, one of the only COVID-free countries in the world right now. I am involved in the entertainment, food and beverage, and technology sectors. So we own and operate a few chains of urban food outlets that are original creations. We organize the Pure Festival, which is an electronic music festival in private islands, resorts, or unique venues. And we also run the only Irish pub on the island. So basically how I got there, if you ask me the source, I would say it's because I love human interaction. I had no idea of my future career plan when I was younger, even as late as when I was at university. So, I started to throw parties with my friends, and all really started from there. And amusement is the basis of everything I do today. Contrary to my friends, at the time, I had not a defined path where I would study in a field, then work in that field for the rest of my life. I had no clue. So I would say I am part of the late bloomers category. It takes me a lot of time to digest, nearly like a simpleton, but when I start, I never leave. So that's my introduction.
Fantastic. Well, not too late because you're only 36, like you say, so you've achieved quite a lot in a short space of time. But I know that growing up, you were not a big fan of school and you felt that the rules were a little bit restrictive. So do you feel that rebellious streak in a way played a part in you pursuing a career as an entrepreneur? And do you believe that in some ways it's a necessary quality to have in order to succeed in business?
Well, I actually loved going to school, but not to study. Anything which has something to do with rules or codes, still today, makes me uncomfortable. Yes, I would say I was a rebel, and I learned so much at school outside the classes. I met lifetime friends and built an incredible network, which is still valid today. I meet all comrades in business or they come to enjoy my events. So networking is the strongest skill I learned at school. I went to a French school. It was very mixed with all cultures, people from various backgrounds, ways of thinking. And you hang out with a lot of expats as well. And, you know, my teachers were part local, part expats. And the school was mixed. I mean, boys and girls together. And I precise that because most of public schools in Mauritius are gender restricted. So you've got schools especially for girls or for boys. So to answer your question, rebellion, yes, rebellion is a necessary quality. There's no question about that. I can't see anybody succeed as an entrepreneur without breaking the rules, without skiing off-road. The main difficulty for an entrepreneur is to deal with issues you never learn at school, because they won't teach you there how, for example, to deal with anxiety when you got cash flow issues, or how to deal with unfair competition, or how to build power and influence. Those are life skills that you learn when you play outside of the comfort zone. And to succeed in business, my own view is that your emotional quotient and your spiritual quotient must be greater than your intellectual quotient. Whereas school mostly focus on your IQ. In some countries now, they are adding those skills. This is the schooling of tomorrow. And I'm sure I would have felt more at home if those classes were already included during the time I was student. And the rebellious spirit is still very strong today, even in business. I have no title in my group. I'm not the CEO or anything. I just have no title. I go to meetings with top executive in my pajamas. I don't wear any fancy watch or any code accessories, which would make me a corporate person. I like to stay simple. So people, they have only to focus on my ideas and performance. And whether people like it or not, I do not care. So that's about, yes, how I was a rebel at school, and still now, I think.
Yeah, that's so funny. And definitely so true. And I'm sure that you've probably developed a company culture around some of those values and those beliefs. You mentioned something quite interesting there about, you know, school not teaching you the necessary life skills to be an entrepreneur. And I definitely agree. I think on the one hand, hopefully it will teach you more of the soft skills like the networking that you touched upon. And even then that could be a luck of the draw, because, you know, like I certainly, I didn't definitely learn networking at school because I was a bit more introverted, and it took me a bit longer to come out of my shell. But you mentioned something there, which
You're a late bloomer too.
Yeah, definitely a late bloomer. But you mentioned something there that was quite interesting about the fact that, like, you can't learn how to deal with anxiety when you have cash flow issues. And today we're dealing with, you know, the pandemic. So obviously there must be a lot of, I think that would be a really interesting topic to maybe talk a little bit about, because a lot of people around the world are obviously facing cash flow issues, and there must be a lot of anxiety that comes with that. So any tips, how do you approach those things?
Well, I will speak only about my own experience because I'm not in the shoes of everybody. When I build the group, I try to have a balance between my own investment and investment from other parties in forms of debts, but also in forms of equity. So, which means that I have people who invested in the project against shares, and others who invested to get interest that we have to pay first. And because of that balance, because the foundations are very important. It's the basis of everything. Because in times of crisis, if your foundations are solid, then you can find solutions. And in my case, my shareholders were very comprehensive. They understand that we have issues, etc. They are giving me time. And it's the same thing. We have an investment fund which has invested with us a significant amount of money last year. You just have to be 100% transparent with them. You go and see them. You see, look, we have an issue. It's no one's fault. We will get out from there. You show the solutions and the strategy, and you ask them for a delay. So so now we don't have to pay this year. We'll pay until next year. As from next year, I mean. So that gives us time to rethink our business model, find new solutions to get fresh cash flow, including find new investors. And you know, we are in the restaurants and events business, so businesses, and worldwide, they are among the activities which are the most affected. And in Mauritius, fortunately, because we are COVID-free, it's we've taken a hit definitely, but it's not as bad as it could have been. So now we're changing strategy and going into a merger with a strategic partner. So just to summarize, it's all about foundations when you create a business, just to put not all eggs in the same basket and to mitigate your risks and not to take too much debts, of course. And second is to readapt when things go wrong, just to rethink your business model in order to get out of it. Even if you take a hit, that doesn't mean you will fail completely. So you must keep the spirit high.
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to investment in an island like Mauritius, do you feel like, because it's obviously, you know, it's a small island, is it like, do you feel like there is a wide pool of investors that you can go to, or is it the same sort of circuit of investors that are kind of growing the country?
Okay, there are many kinds of investors in Mauritius. Of course, the first one must be based on merit. So, for example, for an investment fund, they will ask you to come with a strong business plan and show that you have the skills to make the project successful. And they will invest in the person more than in the project. So you need to be very confident about what you are doing, and you have to have some skin in the game and invest yourself. If, let's say, in the case you don't have any money, then you should have a strong network. This is the second thing. Because with a strong network, I mean with various types of people, you must find some of your friends could be your own investors, and that happened to me. Some of my friends invested in my projects. And third, of course, you must be good at what you do, because if you're not good, then no one will invest in you or no one will believe in you. So yes, and all those type of investments, I don't have any banks with me. So there are solutions that are non-traditional, I would say, than a traditional loan at the bank with when you put your house in guarantee and stuff like that. So it's mostly about your personality, your network, and your the way you're succeeding at things at your own projects. You must prove yourself first to get some credibility. And when you get credibility, I don't know why people won't invest in you.
And a proven track record is always a great thing. And so what do you think makes a good entrepreneur?
Look, first thing is rebellious. You told me about rebellion. I think a good entrepreneur must have that kind of spirit. Second, that would be the network. Network is one of the most important skills for an entrepreneur, because even with no money, you can make great money out of a good network, and you can have contacts, open doors, climb the ladders, etc., by using your network correctly. And the third thing I think would be passion. So if you're passionate about a project, you will be 5 times more productive than the average Joe. So those are the 3 most important skills, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I think passion is definitely one of the most important things, because you'll find you want to do your work at all hours of the day because it's just so addictive to fuel your passion and you enjoy it. So that's the ultimate thing, right?
Yes.
So what were some of the key things that you learned from your parents?
Look, first, I come from an unusual family background. My parents got divorced when I was 10. My dad is still single. My mom got remarried since then, since I was 10. So I am close to my stepfather. So I would say I have 2 fathers. My biological parents come from a Muslim background, and my stepfather is Catholic Chinese. I would say I built the foundations of who I am with those differences. My stepfather is a successful entrepreneur in Mauritius, and I am lucky to have him as a mentor. Most of the things I know in business, I know them through him. And when you learn from a Chinese, you must be grateful. And from my dad, I kept his sense of humor and his cool attitude. My father is a super nice guy. He likes a simple life, watching movies, eat good food, you see. And from my mother, her kindness, generosity, and openness are qualities I've appropriated, which helped me to build my network. She always has friends at home, organize dinners, parties, while at the same time keeping some space for the family. And I am lucky because my parents never forced me into religion and allowed me to hang out with people from different backgrounds and spend a lot of time on the streets. They never told me anything. And that was their biggest contribution, my freedom. I made a lot of mistakes. I lived a wild life at some point, but I learned from this. And today, because I lived all different kinds of experiences, it has developed my empathy skills. And I can literally feel people before they even talk to me. And that's very useful in business.
Yeah, absolutely. What are the streets of Mauritius like?
Oh, when I was young, it was, I was taking either my bicycle or my rollerblades at some point, and you just went around with your neighbors or people from the same neighborhood. You make friends with them. You play basketball. At the time we played a lot of PlayStation, Mega Drive, and stuff like that at the shop. Coming back home, it was playing outside at the time. Huh? Really nice souvenir.
Mauritius seems like a very peaceful country. So maybe the streets are slightly different to what the streets of like East London would be like here in the UK.
Yeah, it's peaceful. Yeah.
Definitely. And so you touched upon it a little bit earlier about not turning up to work in a suit and not sort of having a title, which I think is super interesting. When you have an intuition for a vision, how do you empower the people around you to bring it to life? Because of course, everything in life, when you have a vision, you need a team, right? To put.
Yes, of course. The way I do practically, I call everyone in the boardroom, present the plan for a maximum of 1 hour, because if I can't present it in a maximum of 1 hour, it means it is not clear in my mind. So it is maximum for 1 hour. Then they can ask any questions for a maximum of 30 minutes. And we see, when I am convinced with a project, I can activate the vision in all people around. Sometimes they think I am lunatic, but gradually, with time, they start soaking up into the idea. And if your colleagues don't think you're a lunatic from time to time, because if they think it permanently, that is an issue. If they don't think you're a lunatic from time to time, that's also an issue, because that means you start to think like everybody else. And my team will challenge my ideas and I will listen to them. I'm not always right, but if I have a strong intuition on something, I will go against all odds. Nothing will stop me.
That's phenomenal. So what do you think then are some of the misconceptions of what you do and your job?
Okay, people tend to confuse businessman and entrepreneur. And I was confused too before being an entrepreneur. What's the difference? And those are not exactly the same type of people. Both can be both, of course, but the main difference lies into the purpose. The entrepreneur wants to change the world, to improve the community, to disrupt the status quo. And when he succeeds, the money comes naturally. Whereas the businessman is a trader. Profit is everything, his main purpose. So it is a subtle difference, but a difference nevertheless. You don't need passion to be a businessman, but you need passion to be an entrepreneur.
100%, 100%. So what would be some of your advice for people who actually want to pursue multiple passions like yourself, who's in a variety of industries?
Yes, go ahead, because as I told you, when you're passionate, you will be 5 times more productive than the average Joe anyway. So we are in the era today where people must work smart. You know, at the time of our parents, it was the time to work hard. Now it's the time to work smart, and that would give one plenty of time to be involved in multiple activities, particularly in the COVID era. We have seen that diversification is key to sustainability. If I didn't have my technology branch into the group, we would be dead. It's very important to have diversification. So I'm a hard believer that you can be focused on different activities if they are well structured. So there's no problem about pursuing multiple passions.
Definitely. But do you think that you need to master one and then start enhancing others? Or do you think you can do it all at the same time?
Of course, you can't, there's a structure, there must be a plan, some types of planning, and organize your time accordingly. But nothing will, you don't need to wait 3 years and get to maturity before going to the next project. I think you can pursue different projects as startups at the same time. And it's risky, but not as risky as waiting a lot of time and losing the opportunity.
And so when everything changes, like now, and there might be a situation where people were very used to being comfortable, how do you think that they can push their boundaries and step out of their comfort zone? Because you've been quite vocal about seeing people in positions of power who just cannot get out of that comfortable mindset.
Yes. People excel in the comfort zone, but when you put them outside, they are completely lost. So to answer your question, there is always a way to progress. So no activity is finite. Innovation and technology are by definition in movement. So there is no way one would honestly feel they've reached the limits of their boundaries. Comfort zone in entrepreneurship is when your company reaches the maturity phase, when there is a strong stability, low staff turnover, great financials. Just like comfort zone in humanity is when you find stability in your life. Then what's next? Spirituality is the answer for me, because it is the ultimate step of life and everything. It's the source of everything.
Definitely. And it's clear that you have developed spiritually in the last few years as well. And it's been many years since we met, but you know, I've definitely from afar kind of seen you be quite vocal about going deeper into that aspect of your life. So how has that newfounded spirituality helped you stay focused on your mission?
Yeah, it's so I had the first signs of awakening started in 2008. Time goes fast. It is already 12 years. But it is true that I had a boost 3 years ago when I discovered Osho. I was just watching videos on YouTube, and then he appeared just that, and there, and I watched his video. I was, wow, who's this guy? He's talking so much sense, and it is the first time in my life that I've connected so much with a spiritual master. And I spent the past years reading his books and listening to his talks. It completely changed my life. Since then, I feel I'm on the right path. And it did not only help me to stay focused on my mission, it made my mission on Earth much clearer. And around the same time, I also met my now wife. And I don't believe in coincidences. Spirituality is at the root of everything. When you find a master, it's not true. The master finds you. Something I learned.
And so, talking about marriage, it's something that seems to have put a lot into perspective for you as well. And as you say, no coincidences, because both different things appeared around the same time. So how important do you think it is to find a partner that is either working towards a similar mission or can truly find their way to support you through what you're doing?
Yes. In fact, I don't care about marriage. It's just a piece of paper, you know. But what really counts is love. And indeed, it has put everything in perspective. Love gives me a permanent boost for everything I do in my life. It gives stability, happiness, which are critical to succeed in our mission. I do not think my wife has a similar life purpose or mission, but the compatibility of our two souls gives a tremendous boost to our individual missions. Compatibility is key. In Mauritius, we have a saying for that. All stale bread have their mildly cheese. It's in Creole, hein? Tout du pain acier et n'a ce fromage gâté. That's a horrible saying, but describes it well.
Absolutely. Definitely compatibility is the, is what leads to the longevity of something. And so you spend a lot of time conducting speeches and talks at schools in an effort to inspire the next generation. Maybe you can share with us a little bit more about, you touched upon earlier about your mission here on Earth. So what is that to you, and what's been one of the biggest lessons that you've learned since you started, and what do you want to kind of ultimately relay in these schools?
In school, okay. In schools, it's completely a pure sharing, which means, yes, I have been invited in many schools and universities, including my own school. And I love to share experiences with the young generation, and I learn from them too. The biggest lesson learned for me was that the aspirations of the new generation do not look at all like the aspirations our generation had when we were at school. This generation is not as much materialistic. They are interested by ideas, by the planet. They are very different from our generation. And they start their rebellion earlier. They grew up faster, with the good and the bad side, of course. This is the generation who grew up in the world of information and technology. And I think the current education system is outdated for them. This generation is the one who will turn around the crisis created by the past generations. So now we have an environmental crisis, economic, sanitary, and created by us. So I believe in them more than I believe in my own generation, actually.
Well, you've been quite critical about what you see as failings by those in power around you, I suppose. And so from what I understand, that you do have political aspirations yourself. So what do you think would be key to ensuring that you don't fall into the same trap as perhaps those leaders that have preceded you? And what is the politics like in Mauritius?
Okay. Yes, I do have political aspirations, but you can still do politics behind the curtains. And I think that is even more powerful than being directly exposed. Politicians are failing because the system is failing. All around the world, the leaders which are succeeding in big countries share the same trait. They are corrupt, arrogant, sexist, racist, and people seem to like those traits because they are elected democratically. Have you noticed that good politicians rarely get exposure? For example, the ones in the Scandinavian countries, where they have the best political systems in the world, they have the best economy, they have the best everything. No one talks about them. Only Jacinda Ardern from New Zealand is getting a good exposure, which has boomed during the lockdown and because of the way she handled the pandemic. It's like the media, bad news make the sales, and fake news are more popular than real news. I've watched a recent documentary on Netflix. I don't remember the name. I think it was 5 times more popular than real news. Human behavior is like that. So the system is like that. And it is just natural that we got the politicians we deserve. Good people don't make good politicians because they aren't as attractive. So a good way is either to pull the strings from behind or be an advisor. Good people in the front line become bad people because the system is rotten, unless you're a Nelson Mandela or Mahatma Gandhi. So if you're a super exception, somebody who will change the world, then you can go ahead. Otherwise, I think it is wiser to be behind the curtains. I haven't made my choice yet. Politics in Mauritius is very complicated. We have a Hindu majority. It's communal. People tend to divide us instead of putting us together as Mauritians. It's not that simple. It's not an easy decision, and it depends on many, many factors. And 1 week is long in politics, and my ambitions are for in 4 years. So we have time.
And what would be some of the things that you'd want to do for the country if that you're even working towards now behind the scenes?
The first thing, I think the issues at the root of the country are first corruption. It is extremely corrupt. Second is to protect the nature, because there are too many construction, and we are becoming not as natural as before. So it must be really unattractive for tourists who come and see buildings everywhere. And so first, corruption. Second, ecology. And third, I would say full transparency in all decisions and accountability. Transparency and accountability go together, because then you can put professionals at the head of institutions and get real results instead of having politicians, pure politicians, I mean, without any backgrounds, professional backgrounds in their own ministries. So yes, meritocracy.
And talking about the second point you mentioned there about the biological side of things, of course, Mauritius is an absolutely stunning and beautiful place, and it needs to be protected. So when the oil spill happened recently, how do you kind of reflect upon this time, and what can people take away from what happened?
Yes, there was this catastrophe in August with the oil spill, which gave us a bad publicity around the world. 5% of the coast of Mauritius has been affected, and this has triggered an awakening of the population. And for the first time in history, over 100,000 people went on the streets to rebel against the government. That was the first. The population has also demonstrated solidarity to clean up the lagoons, and thanks to them, we expect the recovery to be quicker than originally planned. So it gives us hope for the future and for the potential birth of a new political party which can gather Mauritians instead of dividing them. So at least something's positive out of this.
How did the politicians react to when the country was kind of coming together and protesting towards them?
They had a bad reaction because all politicians, from government to opposition, because then it was a pure crowd of Mauritians without any political affiliations. Everyone was here for the country as patriots, as a reject of the system, the political system in Mauritius, because it's an accumulation of everything, of arrogance on the populations. And so we had an accumulation of many things which happened in Mauritius recently, which just exploded into a peaceful manifestation. So I think it was a wake-up call for the politicians in general.
Mm. And so how can Mauritians and other islands similar to yourself protect their biodiversity? Because do you feel like it's slipping out of control, or do you think that it's still within your reach to kind of protect and preserve the island?
Well, I am not a scientist, but I would say first, do not let boats sink into our lagoons. That would help. Second, stop building everywhere and destroy the natural ecosystem. And third, include ecology in the heart of the development of the country, because ecotourism and blue economy should be the way forward for islands to protect their biodiversity. That would be logical for me. And I'm not an expert. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think it takes everybody taking it, to make the change. It can't just be skewed towards, one particular group of people, or it has to be, like you said, at the root and the heart of every decision that you make, really. So let's change gears a little bit, because you and I met because of dance music.
Yeah, exactly.
And I get asked this question a lot sometimes, which is like, where have you played that has been surprising, or and sometimes I reference Africa quite a lot to that, because a lot of people would never imagine there's a dance music scene in Mauritius or in Kenya or Uganda or these places, right? So it's absolutely fascinating, because you're one of the key people who brought the scene and the underground electronic music scene particularly to a small island in Africa. That's not an easy feat. So I know you weren't one of the first people, but you're certainly part of that early adopters that kind of brought the music to the island. So what were some of the strategies in making that happen? Did you start out with only local talent, or did you start immediately like trying to book in headliners to come to the island? How did you build the scene up where people started kind of gravitating towards electronic music?
Yeah, from my side, we started very small. So it was very hard at first because people didn't understand the music, me first. So I was hosting underground parties in my club with other organizers. But when I went to Ibiza for 2 weeks, then I understood. So I was myself inspired. It started very small with the crowds who were part of the higher categories markets, because they traveled a lot and were already used to this kind of music. Little by little, organizers all over the island went into the same direction, and it just broke through. Today we have, for our last festival, we had nearly 4,000 people with local people only. Do you imagine? So education work is important, is key from the initiators. And now it's working because we started walking before running.
Definitely. I mean, so how do you educate people towards that? Is that like kind of empowering DJs, getting the equipment for them?
A lot of things. You must fail a lot. You must fail a lot. Accept that some of the parties you make, there will be only a few people coming, sometimes very, very few people. And you just don't let, you continue. You just continue and be patient and innovate, and you see, and attract people with different things. So if, for example, my first festival, I always sold them as conceptual festivals. So when you come, it's not only about the music, it's about the venue. So nice venue, I don't know, private islands, nice resorts, places like that. Second, about the decoration as well, nice decoration. And I was selling a vibe. I wasn't selling music. So people came for the vibe and then got accustomed to the music little by little. So that was my strategy for education, you see. So if you, and I think many people try to attract clients only with music, but you can't force people. You can't force them. Just putting a DJ here and a nice sound system and just close doors and nice, I don't know, techno. You don't like techno, you won't come. So you have to have something else to make people come to your parties, and that's what I did. And today the community is big.
And what is that vibe? What is it like at one of your events?
Positive energy. It's like pure happiness. You know, the first reason I organize events is for me, because I love to party. I love to meet people, my friends, you know, networking. I told you networking is the first thing, and it's just increasing the network, not only my network, but it's a place where people meet for everything. And when you come to our parties, it's always happiness everywhere. People are here to enjoy. You can feel, as from the beginning, we play different types of music. We change places often. We host a lot of international artists before COVID, of course. And the whole thing about partying on the beach or in special places with a boutique format of 1,500 to 2,000 people, you keep quality, and this quality in terms of mixity of my crowd is very mixed. You have everybody coming. It's a nice mix, like in London. In London, you have about the same spirit of mixing different kinds of people, and it's fun, and that creates the X factor. So that's how I would describe our events. Very eclectic and positive.
You mentioned there's a few different types of music, but are there any kind of subgenres that really stand out that Mauritians really kind of get excited about, like maybe melodic techno or tribal?
Yeah, I think each organizer they have their own crowd. So my crowd is more about melodic techno, exactly, progressive house, melodic techno. More about like positive sounds, but dynamic, so they can dance and jump on great music. So we start soft usually, deep house, progressive. We go techno. Sometimes we go with hardcore techno as well. It all depends on many factors. You know, we're not stuck in one particular genre. We try to open our boundaries to many types of music, but of course we won't play, for example, Sega. in Sega is a typical Mauritian music in our festival.
Yeah, of course. And so what was it that you experienced in Ibiza, like all those years ago? What events, what clubs did you go to that kind of put the seed into your mind?
No, that was for the story. I was invited by C-Rock, by Diageo, which is the biggest spirit company in the world. So I was their influencer in Mauritius, and they invited all the African influencers for a trip in Ibiza for 1 week. And we stay, yeah. Then I stayed a week additional with my friends. So 2 weeks in total. So we were completely invited for 1 full week, going in the best places in Ibiza, in all the best beach clubs, at Ushuaia and, you know, at Pasha, etc. We had the best tables. We drank for free, whole night, whole day. So actually, I don't know, it would have cost me, I think, 10 or 15,000 euro a week. It was all offered. They invited us in a yacht. So that was high level. I fell in love, of course, with Ibiza, with the whole thing. I stayed an extra week because I loved it so much. So I called one of my best friends. He joined me. My sister also came to join me. And after those 2 weeks, I can assure you, I had no energy left. So I came back to Mauritius. I slept a lot, and I have my nightclub at the time. And so then I started to organize underground parties every week at Les Enfants Terribles, which was the name of the club. And that was it. It was the start of my introduction of underground music in Ibiza and Mauritius.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's hard to see how you wouldn't love it with that kind of introduction to the island. That sounds like the dream, man. It is quite sad because obviously, yeah, you know, the island's been really affected by COVID, and you know,
they lost the season.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and just to think, you know, one person like yourself coming to the island, you know, can go back to their country and become a pioneer for bringing a whole, you know, thousands and thousands of people being exposed to that. That's, you know, that's a phenomenal thing. So that's pretty awesome. So, I mean, you mentioned that, you know, Mauritius is COVID free, which is amazing. You know, I know you organize this music festival, and what are your thoughts on the future of Mauritian nightlife? Were you pleasantly surprised that 4,000 people came down who are all locals? Or have you always been, you know, kind of used to the fact that like locals are really in tune with the vibe? Do you need that tourism? Where do you see the nightlife going on your island?
Okay, from my side, I am the most grateful person on earth right now, seeing all festivals being cancelled in the world. I can only be happy to be able to continue organizing festivals in Mauritius. This is giving us an edge compared to other highly touristic countries in terms of exposure. I am hoping to get huge artists to come to Mauritius in 2021. This year I tried, but they are all afraid to travel. But at some point they will need money, and I guess they will miss playing for people too. The Mauritian event scene is looking bright as long as we stay COVID free, for sure. For now, we can cope with local people. We have the critical mass to be sustainable, but of course, to open just to be open musically, we need to bring international artists and hopefully tourists, of course.
And what do you look for in international artists when you look to bring them to the island?
Many factors. It depends on the vibe, on the month, on the availabilities. So we are not stuck. We contact different agencies to see if X or Y are free on that date. For now, we've contacted the biggest one, the A-list, because they are available, obviously, but they don't want to travel. The A-list, they tell you they can stay 1 year in lockdown if they want because they have so much money. You know, it's all about money now, unfortunately. And
are they willing to take a slight pay cut because of the situation, do you think?
Sorry?
Do you think that those fees for the top level guys would stay the same, or do you think there'll be a...
No, it will decrease for sure, because it's the law of demand and offer. Huh? It's basic economics principles. So no, definitely they will have to review their fees. And this is the reason why they don't accept to come now, because they don't want to lower their fees. But at some point, you know, they won't have a choice. And the prices have increased dramatically for the past few years for the big electronic music artists. Some of them crazy, 50,000 euro, 100,000 euro for electronic artists. It's crazy. So the small clubs or organizers like me, it's just not doable, because so they're working just for big nightclubs in Las Vegas or big festivals. So it's not about pleasing people or the crowd or the scene. It's about making money, just like any mainstream artist and EDM artist. You know, I understand them. Of course, it's a business. I'm doing business too, but you have to have some kind of stability and also work for small countries and small organizers, because otherwise it's not fair.
No, of course. I don't think that, those clubs that, in the past were paying that level fee are going to really exist anymore. I think whoever survives this pandemic in the music industry is going to be, I think it's going to be about rebuilding the house, as it were, more than, kind of going back, expecting things to go back to how it ever was, because it probably never will for a long time. But it was interesting because obviously, you booked me, and I'm, it feels like you're quite, you take on more of maybe a risk or a belief in the fact that there are also underground artists or more up and coming artists who can still connect with the crowd, and you don't need sometimes. And I think this is what COVID might maybe kind of mean for artists, is that there'll be more demand for local DJs because they can do the similar jobs to headliners. They can still move a room, they can still, and Mauritius has a fantastic DJ local DJ scene, local actually DJs, yes. Yeah, phenomenal. So how do you see the island sort of changing in the next 5 years, and what's next for you on your side?
Well, tourism has taken a big hit, and I do not see a recovery anytime soon. You see, it's a L-shaped recovery, so it might be very long or not recover at all. So the first big change in Mauritius will be about our tourism offer. Many hotels will close, and unfortunately, and we will need to change our strategy to attract long-term tourists. Digital nomads, millennials, multimillionaires, and billionaires. If we stay COVID-free, I assure you, multimillionaires and billionaires will come because their health is more important than their money. And we need to have a strong focus on ecotourism and become like Sambal. It is difficult because we are perceived as a middle-range destination. We were perceived as a high luxury destination 20 years ago, but now it's Maldives, it's Seychelles, and we're in the middle range. And I don't see any other option to become sustainable. Quality over quantity. This is the other option, the only option. I also see Mauritius becoming a technological hub for the Indian Ocean and in Africa. With the political will and the right contacts, we can make it happen. But for that, we need professionals in the institutions. I was talking about transparency and accountability. Maybe I am dreaming too much. And for us, for me, we're getting into the food security sector. Because at the beginning of our interview, I told you we are changing our business model. We have to. I believe food security will become one of the main sectors in the next few years. The idea is that we would control the full value chain from farm to procurement, food processing, distribution, and own our own restaurants. So it's a bit abstract maybe, but basically we would own fish factories, goods and sheep farms, and we'll do the food processing. We'll have a store for food and a logistics company, and we would distribute to supermarkets, hypermarkets, other restaurants, and our own restaurants. So it's more stable this way, because even if COVID hits back, we would be more diversified, even if we stay in the food business. So I am now in the middle of a merger acquisition with a South African entity.
That's awesome. Well, I wish you all the luck for your new merger. And so finally, Javed, what do you want to be remembered for?
I want to be remembered as someone who brought a positive contribution to this world. Simple as that. So just a nice person who did nice things for people, for his country, for the world, maybe. So we'll see.
Awesome. Well, Javed, thank you so much for taking part in Mission Makers and coming on the show. Wish you all the best and hopefully see you sometime soon, wherever it may be. It's been super interesting hearing about Javed's experiences with entrepreneurship and bringing entertainment to Africa. It's clear that the same principles for success apply globally, no matter what industry you're in. And I think it's so true what he says about there being a link between a rebellious spirit and entrepreneurship. You do need to challenge the typical boundaries set by our world and have a comfortable appetite for taking risks in order for a vision to succeed. That being said, I also do agree that you shouldn't feel the pressures to have all the answers, because at the end of the day, as he says, none of us can fully predict things that are not in our control. And as long as you keep your foundations and network strong, there's always a way forward. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to this episode. I hope you're leaving with some great inspiration that can help you with whatever you want to achieve in your life. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe via your favourite podcast platform so you can be notified when a new episode is posted. It would also mean the world to us if you could rate and review the show and share it with your friends so we can reach as many people as possible. If you want to reach out to me as well, you can get in touch directly at dj.n1nja on Instagram and Twitter. That's dj.n1nja and also at Mission Makers on social media. Thanks so much again for listening. Until next time, Mission Makers, stay safe and have an amazing week.